The Sikha that I shall be undertaken, the one for Parshat TAZRYIAH, was originally printed in the Likutei Sichot volume 27. I shall be using the reworking of that Sikha in the more recent Otse Likutei Sichot. The Sikha addresses the issue raised in Vayikra 14:34 that deals with the tzara'at, through which HaKadosh Baruch Hu afflict the bricks and mortar of the home in which one lives. In the words of the Pasuk, V'natati neged tzara'at, I shall give, or I shall place, a tzara'at, bebeit eretz achuzatachem, in a home that is located in the land of your inheritance. As has been the custom with all the Sichot, I shall first look at the context of this Pasuk. The topic of tzara'at is spread between two Parshiot, Vayikra 13, linked to Parshah TAZRYIAH, and Vayikra 14, linked to Parashat Metzorah, at times separated from Parashat TAZRYIAH. In other years, we have Parashat TAZRYIAH and Metzorah, read on the single Shabbat. Parashat TAZRYIAH begins with Perek Yud Bet, which deals with the halachot that relate to childbirth. We are told that following the birth, the mother begins a period of tumah that lasts for, in the case of a male child, 7 days, and for a female, 14 days. This period of tumah is akin to and similar to the nida period, a period in which there is to be no intimacy between husband and wife. The obligation for Brit Milah that had been recorded in Sefer Bereshit pre-Matan Torah is re-established in Vayikra Perek 12. Following the Yemei Tumah, and with the cessation of any bleeding, we have the Yemei Tahara, a period of 33 days for the birth of a male and 66 days for the birth of a female. This is the raw Torah requirement. In later generations, the minhag that became normative practice was that any flow of blood during the Yemei Tahara would bring about a cessation of intimacy. The perek ends with a listing of the korbanot that the birth mother was to bring following the Yemei Tahara. Perek Yud Gimel begins a lengthy segment of Torah text that relate to the tzara'at before outlining Perek 13 and 14, a word about the definition of tzara'at, which was in today's terms a skin disease and for which one would seek guidance from a dermatologist. Ancient Egypt, the 17th century before the Common Era, we have the first recorded, documented evidence of a varied and fruitful medical tradition. This period approximated that of Yetziat Mitzrayim, when Bnei Israel left Egypt. At the time, to a considerable extent, Egyptian medicine dealt with the supernatural, but eventually developed into the practical use in the fields of anatomy, public health, and clinical diagnostics, much akin to the present-day practice of medicine, without its paranormal, supernatural overtones, which may or may not have provided the foundation for the laws of tzara'at recorded in Vayikra, Perek 13 and 14. Most of the early translators of the Chumash text, the Sonsino, the Hertz, and others, followed the lead of the non-Jewish King James Bible that translated the tzara'at as the ancient disease of leprosy. The word leprosy comes from the Latin lepra, scaly, the link being a form of a skin disease. However, when one takes a close reading of the tzara'at of Sefer Vayikra, one discovers that there is very little in common and that one cannot link the tzara'at to leprosy. In the Christian tradition, the disease of tzara'at, incorrectly linked to leprosy, was treated as a curse of HaKadosh Baruch Hu rather than merely an infection, and with some reverse thinking. Leprosy, being a contagious disease, required that the culprit, who was punished by God, needed to be isolated from society. And here once again, the inaccurate link between tzara'at and leprosy. Tzara'at also required a period of isolation, where the Metzorah must leave the camp for a period of 7 days. To be fair, there is also a very strong tradition, based upon Midrashic material, that tzara'at came on account of a violation of the laws of Lashon Hara, the logic being that this was a midah keneged midah response from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Lashon Hara breeds divisiveness and separation within the community, and therefore the punishment atonement would be that the one stricken with tzara'at should also be separated from society. But, as noted, when one compares and contrasts the symptoms of leprosy, there is little in common with the description of TAZRYIAH as presented in Vayikra 13:14.